All right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, it is going to be a wild one. We are talking about Everything Everywhere All at Once from Daniels, writer-director Daniels. That's Daniel Quan and Daniel Scheinert, who previously made Swiss Army Man, which was one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. And so I have obviously really been looking forward to this one. I feel like a lot of other people have too, even if not everybody liked Swiss Army Man as much as I did. But yeah, everybody's loving this movie and everybody is talking about this movie. And I'm excited to talk about it with our guest, film critic Erica Richards. It's her first time on the show. We have a great conversation, lots of good puzzle pieces. So that is coming up here in a second. Before we get to it, I want to remind you, as always, to make sure you're subscribed to Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever in the multiverse you are, there's probably an app that you can click subscribe to Piecing It Together on. You could also probably click 5 stars to rate and review us. We'd appreciate that. We're also, of course, on Twitter and Instagram and all the social medias at Piecing Pod, so make sure you're following us. And join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. We'd really love to have you over there. The group's about to hit 300 members. I keep it closed, so that way I keep all the trolls out. And it's growing nice and, slowly but surely. And I managed to keep it a really nice, fun place to talk about movies without all the, monsters of the entire, internet universe. So it's been a really nice, fun place to talk movies. You could also check out our Patreon, the Produced by David Rosen Patreon, where I post bonus and advanced content from Piecing It Together, as well as exclusive bonus content from Awesome Movie Year and a bunch of stuff from my music career. I actually just posted a new album commentary track over there. Lots of great stuff. So check it out. It's patreon.com/bydavidrosen. Now, with all that said, let's talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once. All right, so Erica Richards is with us to talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I am so excited to talk about this movie. It's going to be a weird one, but Erica, thanks for being here. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing good. I'm super excited to talk about this one. I'm excited to see where it goes. I tried to pick a kind of obscure puzzle pieces. We'll see what happens.
All right.
I'm excited. I'm excited to hear what your puzzle pieces are, and I'm just excited to talk about this one. This is one
Awesome.
I've been looking forward to for a while. So.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And my pieces are all over the place. Some obvious ones, some maybe random ones. We'll see as we get to it. But before we do get to the movie, why don't you tell people a little about you and what you do?
Yeah. I am from Baltimore. I'm a wannabe film critic. I used to work in production. I kind of have switched for the past year. I miss it. I miss working production. But yeah, I used to write at a few different sites. I'm not writing as much lately just because of life and work and life. But I still try to be active on Twitter at eRock Reviews. You can follow me there. I have a link tree that has all the podcasts I've been on. I always love to be on a podcast because I love to talk.
Nice.
And I have always wanted to start my own podcast, but time again. I gotta find the time.
Sure.
But yeah, so I am still writing mostly at CRP Writes, just doing little short reviews there as much as I can, but all my stuff is on Twitter and on my link tree. You can find me there.
Awesome. Yeah, let's start getting into Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like you said, you had been looking forward to this one. I mean, this is definitely, I think, the movie that has like the film Twitter world the most excited this year of pretty much anything. And that excites me because, as I told you, like before we were going to record, I love Swiss Army Man. I am such a big fan of that movie.
Okay, I watched that yesterday.
Okay.
I have mixed feelings on it.
That's the right initial response to have, I think.
Yeah. I'd heard about this a long time ago. Of course, I'm a huge A24 stan. I don't know if you are, but I love everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I try to see everything they've put out. I love everything they do. I just love them as a company. Like, I feel like they're so different than other film distribution companies and the way they market themselves and just the types of films, obviously, that they put out. So yeah, I have mixed feelings. I think I think I need to give it a rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an oddly sweet film,
Yeah.
and it's funny. Like, I mean, a fart can't not be funny, right?
Sure. Sure.
It's one of those that when I'm watching it, I'm also going, what the hell is this? And also, am I might never watch this again. You know, it's like one of those
Mm.
things where I'm like, I think I need to give it a rewatch, but also I'm like, I don't know if I ever want to watch this again. I don't know. I
Yeah.
might get canceled for that, but um,
No, that's fine. But you know what? I usually throw it to my guests for the first piece, but since we're talking about Swiss
yeah,
Army Man,
yeah. Go
I'm
for
going to
it.
include that on my puzzle pieces
Okay.
list because I do think that Daniels are, which I guess we call them Daniels, not the
Yeah.
Daniels. You know,
Yeah.
they're very odd. But
Yeah.
I do think that Everything Everywhere All at Once is kind of not that dissimilar
Right.
from Swiss Army Man. I mean, they're
Right.
both, dealing with serious issues, talking about issues of mental health and all this stuff, but
Yeah.
in a very silly, wacky, ridiculous movie. And to me, the wackiness in Swiss Army Man works so well within the story. And I think
Yeah.
that that's kind of where it can maybe lose some people. Of course,
Yeah.
I said in my Letterboxd review, like, the farting corpse movie, is used as like a pejorative with Swiss Army Man a lot of the times. To me, Everything Everywhere All at Once is another farting corpse movie in a way. I mean, it's just as wacky and ridiculous
Right.
and all over the place. I just feel
Right.
like everybody is a little more cool with it this time around.
Well, here's what I always like to say, and this is something that one of my professors in college used to tell us. And this was like a news producing like package class. And he would always say, like, show me something I've seen before in a different way. And I think
Sure.
that, is across the board. And I always love films that are creative and, break the mold and take risks. And that's definitely what both of these films do.
Yeah.
And so I can't knock it, but I'm also like, it's like, and I always like pride myself in saying like I'm a true cinephile. I'll watch anything and I can appreciate anything. So I was
Hmm.
saying what I've said about Swiss Army Man. I don't want to sound like I didn't. I just don't know if the story is exactly for me, but it is. I don't know. It's like, and I also like films that challenge you, right? Like make you look at like how you consume things and how you understand things. And yeah, it's definitely, I think definitely I can very strongly say that both of these films, Swiss Army Man and Everything Everywhere All at Once, are both films that, like, I've never seen before, right? Like,
Right.
as
Yeah.
much as you have seen those before, because at one point I'm like, is Swiss Army Man a little bit Brokeback Mountain and Castaway
Uh-huh.
combined? What is
Sure.
and Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's so many moments in there that you're, like, familiar with, but at the same time, you're like, this is not something I've ever seen before. And I
Yeah.
love that. I love that about both of them.
Yeah, that's what makes them so exciting as filmmakers. And yeah, I mean, they in their music video work and stuff like that. I mean, they're always looking to try new things and try different things. And so
Mhm.
they're definitely people that I'm excited to see anything they're gonna do. But
Yeah.
yeah, let's move into some more pieces. So what do you have for your first one?
Okay, so actually, I don't know why, but I'm gonna call out another A24 film here. This kind of gave me reminders of The Farewell. I think
Okay.
just like the Chinese American immigrant story, like the family part of it. That's really it. That's the only puzzle piece I made for that. Like, obviously, there's not multiple universes there. The other
Sure.
films I have are ones with multiple universes, but it kind of just reminded me of The Farewell in a way, like I said, that just really dealt with family issues and cultural family differences. I thought that was like a very big part of the film, obviously,
Yeah.
and the whole film of The Farewell, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think
Yeah,
that fits really well. And
yeah,
to take that kind of family story and a very specific family story and mix it in with this kind of a genre movie, it kind of like gives you a different opportunity to tell that kind of story in a
right,
different way, which makes it a cool one.
right.
So yeah, no, I think that's a great one to include here. I'll go to another one here. I'm going to jump around, actually. I was going to go with a more obvious one first, but I guess I'll go to this other one here. I'm going to go with Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Let's start jumping into all the
Okay,
craziness a little
what's
bit.
funny is I've never seen that,
You
and
haven't? Okay.
people are always shocked when I say that. And have you been playing? Okay, first, have you been playing Wordle?
Yes.
Okay, have you been playing Framed?
Yes.
That was if you haven't done it, spoiler alert, the framed for today is the Scott Pilgrim one. And I was like guessing.
It took me 4 tries, by the way, to get that
Oh,
one.
okay. So
Yeah.
I guessed Juno once I like could see that it was Michael Cera, And then I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, when it wasn't Juno, which there's some of the images I'm like, I don't remember this from Juno, but maybe it is. And then I ended up running out of guesses. Well, the first 2 guesses weren't related to Michael Cera, and then it was, and then I ended up guessing the what is it, like Nick and Nora or
Oh,
something?
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then I didn't get it, and I was like, oh, I bet it's that other Scott Pilgrim one that I haven't seen that everyone judges me for having not seen.
I
So
was
tell
just
me.
guessing random movies that take place in the snow, by the way. So
Oh,
I was
yeah,
totally off, you know.
yeah, exactly, yes.
I love that we're talking about Framed. We should get those guys to sponsor this podcast. But
It's awesome. Oh my gosh! Yesterday I was so proud of myself. I got it on the first one.
nice.
The Exorcist is one of those movies that like haunts me.
Uh-huh.
I think I just saw it way too young, but it's so funny because as soon as I saw that image of the church and the sun, I knew exactly what it was. And I don't even really remember that part of the movie. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's weird how if you're a visual person like I am, how you remember things. It's
Yeah.
strange.
It is weird. It sometimes it just doesn't make sense, but like
Yeah.
it kind of like certain little blips just kind of like lock in.
Yeah.
But yeah, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I mean, just all like not going into spoilers or anything, but just
Mhm.
on a visual level of like what Edgar Wright is doing in that movie with just
Mhm.
totally over the top, wild and crazy visuals. He hasn't really done that in a while. I guess a little bit in Last Night in Soho, his most recent
Mhm.
movie, but
Mhm.
and Last Night in Soho actually does blend to kind of timelines, so it's almost like
Yes.
universes. So it kind of
Yes.
is kind of in that similar vein a little bit to Everything Everywhere All at Once. But I definitely think the visual style of Scott Pilgrim versus the World is the closest analogy to what's going on here. But yeah, just going as far over the top, a lot of comic book imagery, game-like imagery, all just to be able to push forward the narrative here and make everything just over the top and really fun and exciting to watch visually.
Well, I'll have to seek out Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I know it's one of those ones that is a blind spot for me, so now I'll definitely have to seek it out. But going off of what you're saying with all this like craziness and ridiculousness visually, this also reminded me of something I've recently watched, which was a major blind spot for a while, is Spirited Away, which is my next puzzle piece.
Nice,
Um,
nice.
just you've seen that, yes?
Actually, no, I haven't. That is a big blind
Okay.
spot from me as well.
Okay. You know how it's one that you always see like film Twitter
Yeah.
talking about, or just like
Oh yeah.
it's on all the lists, like all of the top whatever lists, it's on all of those.
They do screenings occasionally at the theater too, and I'm hoping that
Oh.
that's where I'll end up catching it one of these
Oh, you
days.
definitely should. It's very visually stimulating, which
Yeah.
obviously Everything Everywhere All at Once is.
Yeah.
Which is, and it's also, spoiler alert, a different universe. So that's why it was one of my puzzle pieces, because I think it really, and it's something that I think could have been influential with this film.
Oh, I would think so.
Yeah. So you should definitely seek that out. I only watched it at home, but if you can get a screening in a theater, I think that would be really cool. There's all
Yeah.
these like different creatures and just different, you're first of all, you're in this completely different world, but just different creatures and different things, and Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's not so many, like, of course there's the raccoon, which I love that part.
Sure. And the
Obviously.
rocks.
Yeah, and the rocks. So things like that I think are similar. But Spirit Away, it's also one of those films that challenged me, right? And what I really loved about Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I love this about any movie that does this, is that if someone asks you to explain it, it's nearly impossible to, right? You have to
Hmm.
experience it. And I feel like
Yeah, yeah.
that's what Spirited Away is, and that's what Everything Everywhere All at Once is like, even if I tried to, like, if a friend said, like, okay, give me a 2-sentence like synopsis of the film, I could do it, but it's never going to actually, you're going to end saying, just, you got to go watch it. You got to go experience
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Even a film like Parasite isn't different universes or anything, but I feel like Parasite is one of those films that you could say, like, okay, it's about these 2 families and this, this, that, or and the other, but really that's not really what it's about, right? Like
Sure.
it's really about all these other things, right? Just where, like, Everything Everywhere All at Once and Spirited Away, they're about these other things. Even though you're watching what's happening, you're understanding that, okay, these themes are much deeper, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I even though I haven't seen Spirited Away, I don't have any animated films on my list here. So I like you bringing one in because this
Yeah.
movie really does things that you think like, oh, you could probably only do that in animation, but oh no, they find ways to do it here,
Right.
and so
Right.
that is something that's again back to the visual aspect of the filmmaking. But I'll go to another one here, and this one's a very, I think, probably the most obvious one on my list here, and that is The Matrix.
Oh, yeah.
When we're talking about two different worlds and being able to like jump between them and communicate between them, and you kind of got like a ship full of heroes that are trying to carry out this mission to find the one, quote unquote, and that's Michelle Yeoh here, and yeah, there's so much Matrix here, and since making my list of puzzle pieces before our recording, I actually did see an interview where Daniels was saying that, of course, the Matrix is something that was, heavily influential to them and what they were trying to do, especially the first one. But I
Right.
think there's a lot of, all the Matrix, including the most recent one, a lot of that in here. But dealing, mainly with the whole multiverse aspect, you get
Right.
into everything that the Matrix kind of set up as like a sci-fi
Yeah.
idea.
I love, oh my gosh, that used to be when I was like 12 years old. That was like one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
And of course I thought of it, but I didn't list it because I figured you would probably list it. And also
sure.
like, and I didn't know if it was like, and you know what's crazy is as much as I love the original Matrix and as many times as I've seen it, I actually resaw it in theaters a couple years ago. I guess it was an anniversary.
Yeah.
This is pre-COVID, and they were replaying it in the theater, so I went, and that was really fun. But I've never seen any of the sequels, not even the most recent one.
You are so
Um,
lucky.
See,
Like
that's a,
I love the new one, but
yeah.
I would if it was just the first one, perfect
Right, that's what
movie,
I'm saying, like, for
Yeah.
sequels, sometimes I'm just like, "Oh, the first one, like, don't mess with it," you know?
Yeah.
So even the most recent one I didn't see, but obviously they have the universe thing figured out.
Mhm.
And I was thinking too of films like, the most recent Spider-Man. Obviously that I'm not like so much into the superhero movies.
Sure.
Like
Yeah, me neither, by
if
the
you
way.
remember from our
Yeah.
binge movies podcast, when I watched the wrong Avengers film, I
That's
completely watched the
right.
wrong one. So and I don't know if you've seen any of those or if you can talk to it deeper. Obviously, I saw the most recent Spider-Man. My boyfriend and I, we just kind of were like, you know what, everyone's talking about it. Let's go see it, right? And we're theater people, so we like to go to the theater anyways, just to see
Yeah.
whatever's out. And I actually really enjoyed it. Like,
Mhm.
of course, I love Andrew Garfield, and I know he's like the hot spot, like hot ticket right now. But I've loved him forever.
Yeah.
And so that was really fun to like see that and just like these different universes, right? Because that's such a superhero thing. But I always love when a film is not superhero like and can do it. And that will lead me to my next puzzle piece, which is About Time. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, back when it first came out. It's been a
Yeah.
long time, but yeah.
So I actually just rewatched it this morning before because I was like
Nice.
thinking like I really thought like this would be a good one to talk about because it's this whole like it's a multi-universe because it's time travel, but really it's the same universe. But I really thought this one, like, I don't know if you remember in the movie, the rule is like you have to get in a closet and close the doors and like, do two fists and close your eyes
Uh-huh.
and imagine where you're going. And I thought that was really a lot like the launching pads in Everything Everywhere All at Once, which were so like so many jokes came from that.
Sure.
And I thought that was really, really fun. But I liked that, like, this rule of, like, the specific thing you have to do or, like, this launching pad thing is what, catapults you into the next universe. So I thought
Yeah.
that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And About Time, like, also, if you remember correctly, it's like they're going back in time to, like, kind of fix things or try to
Sure.
fix things, right? Which is, I think, a lot of Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it's also like a lot about family, right? Which is
Yeah.
another parallel. And I
Absolutely.
also it's all the same people in the same universe, which I thought was interesting about Everything Everywhere All at Once is that it was different universes with the same people. So like all of the
Right.
same characters were
Yeah.
still present, which was
Yeah, because
interesting.
they're all different versions of themselves.
Yes,
So it's like, yeah,
exactly.
they wouldn't be like different actors all of a sudden or something like
Yeah.
that. They're just them, but a little different. You know what
Right.
also is great? I'm sure you probably saw something online about this, but the whole story of a girl by 9 Days, the song
Oh,
that shows
yeah.
up in
Yeah,
multiple
yeah,
different
yeah.
universes,
I
and
like
I
that
guess,
song.
yeah, I know. I mean, who doesn't like that song? And
Right,
but
everyone knows
I
it.
guess they reached out to the guy, and he recorded slightly different versions to play in each universe. There's like 5 different
No
versions.
way. That
That's
kind of just gave
so
me chills.
crazy.
That
That's
kind of just gave me
amazing.
That's awesome. Well, and it's
Yeah.
funny cuz I left the screening and my my boyfriend and I were talking on the drive home, and I said, did you ever think like this? And he's like, oh yeah, all the time, because he's like obsessed with space and like, the like how we're just like a blip on of nothingness, and there's all these different universes, and I'm like, yes, that's terrifying, and I think about that too. But do you ever think about like your own self, right? Like if you got the latte instead of the iced coffee this morning, would you have spilled it on
Mhm.
yourself? Or if you would have taken this street instead of that street on your way to work, like could you have gotten in an accident? Or like the example I gave him was like, what if you went to a different college? Like I think about that
Yeah.
all the time. Like if I went to a different school, like I'd be friends with different people and my life would have been different
Oh
somehow,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think about that all the time. Even these like little tiny decisions that we make every day, I think about like how it would have changed my life somehow. And he
Yeah.
was just like, I get, and for me, I'm like, that is like so relatable, right?
Yeah. I think about how much free time I'd have had if I hadn't started podcasting. That's kind of my big one, but
Right, 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 right.
I'm
That's
stuck
funny.
now. So
Yeah, you're embedded in this universe. So
I very much am. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah,
that's so funny.
one other thing about what you were just talking about there, I do like how everybody just basically has to do something weird in order to
Yeah,
access a different version of themselves. Like that's their launching pad, and I don't know, that just fits so squarely into what Daniels have kind of built for themselves as a brand, as
right.
filmmakers, of just everything just being so weird. It's like kind of the perfect launching mechanism that they've kind of come up with there. But yeah, I think that's a great one. I'll go to another piece here. I tend to bring Charlie Kaufman up too much on this podcast, but this movie does have a lot of Charlie Kaufman tendencies. I'm going to go with Synecdoche, New York for my next puzzle piece, in
I'm not
which
familiar with that one.
okay, it's a fantastic movie. Very strange, very, very, very weird. But stars Philip Seymour Hoffman as
Oh,
a play director who is trying to stage a production of basically everything in the world happening in
mm-hmm.
this one playhouse, and it just completely overtakes his life to the point where, and this isn't spoilers, but I mean, he's literally creating everything within this one big giant empty abandoned playhouse, to the point where there's recreations of himself recreating everything within the playhouse, and it gets completely out of hand and completely insane. And I think that with the various multiverses and all of the different versions of people that start to exist within this play that he's trying to create, you kind of get this parallel with everything and all the different versions of people and everything everywhere all at once that start to end up interacting with each other. I would also pull in a little bit of extra Charlie Kaufman with his novel Ant Kind, which I don't think there will ever be a movie of, because it's just there's just too much to it. But
Right.
this certainly tries to go all the way back to us just being rocks on a cliff, and everything to the very future and everything
It
between.
was just that honestly was like one of my favorite parts of the movie.
It is.
Uh,
It's so
it's
good.
so good. And like I saw it in a packed theater. I don't know about you, but it was a packed theater and everyone was laughing. Like
Yeah.
everyone was giggling and just like enjoying that moment. And I thought it was like such like a I don't know how to describe, but like this thing where we could all find humor in it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it
I would
was
say that this was next to Jackass is my
oh
favorite
my
like
god.
cinema experience this year for sure.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. Jackass was so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really fun theater experience. Yeah, and you just go into it knowing you're gonna laugh, which is fun
Mm-hmm.
about Jackass. I don't know. I think I don't know what I expected going into Everything Everywhere All at Once. I thought for sure it looked like there would be some laughs.
Sure.
I didn't expect to cry, and I did cry at the
Yeah.
part where and this is also like kind of like what sparked me to think about time, because the like love story aspect of it was when it's the universe where she's like a famous actress, right? And he's
Yeah.
there, and he's like, in another life, I think I would have loved just to do laundry and taxes with you.
Great
And
line.
it was so good, and I just like it really hit me because it's just like, yeah, I know. What's the saying where it's like life only has two certainties, death and taxes, or something like that?
Sure.
And so I love that aspect of it, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, another certainty in life is laundry, right? Like, I don't know about you, but
Oh yeah.
I hate laundry. I
The
hate
never-ending
the
story.
never-ending chore.
Yep.
I hate doing laundry. That's probably the chore I like to do the least.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I just really love that part of it. But I can appreciate a movie that can genuinely give me a belly laugh, and whether it was during the rock scene or during the Ratatouille Raccoonie scene, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure we'll talk about that too. That I just I loved. And when you think about it, it really is like a family movie, right? Like,
Oh
this is
yeah.
something I would suggest to like a family with teenagers. Maybe I don't think little kids would really get it or appreciate it. I think they might find the visuals interesting, but it really is just like a family film, right? Like, it just
Yeah.
really is.
The family stuff
um
is what really makes it all work because
yeah,
like if it was just time jumping and attacking people with dildos, like
right.
it would just be just
Right.
ridiculous.
For what reason, right? For
Yeah.
what reason?
Yeah.
And of course, the like I'm trying to think of the other scenes where, like, I mean, I was just like cracking up, was the hot dog fingers, right?
Yeah, oh yeah,
The
of
hot dog
course.
fingers. And I feel like everyone was laughing at that because that was just so ridiculous. And
Michelle Yeoh and Jamie Lee Curtis really sell those hot
oh
dog
my
fingers.
gosh, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah. I would love to see the bloopers from that because I think
Oh
that would be
God.
amazing. But
Yeah.
speaking of Jamie Lee Curtis, it made me think about her, and that would be one of my puzzle pieces too, right? It's just like her as like a person, although she's playing such a different character in this film, visually, emotionally, mentally, everything. But I thought about, of course, Freaky Friday, which is like a swap movie, but kind of like an alternate universe kind of movie, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And then also the just like the Halloween universe, right? Like, she
Uh-huh.
lives in that universe for so many people. So that was like kind of a puzzle piece for me, that and she was great too, right? She was so funny
Yeah.
in all the different universes she played as well.
Yeah, she's so good, and yeah, she's
Yeah.
definitely playing with like expectations of what she could be in
Mhm.
a movie. I mean, she's never really had a chance to be this like
Right.
out there before,
Yeah.
and she's having so much fun with it, and
Yeah, and she
she's
really went
great.
for it. Yeah, and
Yep. Yeah.
she was so good, and she really went for it, and I think showed a lot of range.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the hot dog. I will never forget the hot dog fingers. I'll never
So
forget it.
ridiculous.
It's so
So
ridiculous,
freaking
but it
ridiculous.
works, right? Like, it
Yeah.
works. Like,
Absolutely.
could you imagine this other universe? And that's something that, like, people play. Oh, like, I'm sure you play like board games with your friends or whatever,
Mhm.
and it's always like that. I don't know if you've ever played. It's the Would You Rather game, where it's like, would you rather have hot dog fingers or never eat a hot dog again, or something? It's like that
I
kind of
want to play
thing.
that game. That sounds like
Oh,
fun.
you've never played? It's so fun. I think it's actually like, I know it's an actual like there's actual cards, and I
Like
don't
a
know.
card thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and but also my friends like would just come up with random shit like that. But we've definitely played it as a game.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like you really think about it, like, would I have hot dogs for fingers? Like, what would that be like, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, just thinking about that, it just it's like, it's so ridiculous, but I think the magic of the movie being able to actually visualize it, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's something you can think about and laugh about in your head, like when you're playing a game with your friends, but actually seeing it on screen and like seeing how freaking ridiculous it would be
Yeah.
is again what makes Everything Everywhere All at Once so great.
Absolutely, absolutely. You kind of brought it up a little bit earlier, but I don't think we can have this conversation without talking about the Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
All of multiverse is basically the hot thing right now, and it's going to be
Yeah.
a part of Doctor Strange. It's going to be a part of everything going forward with the Marvel movies. Personally, I liked it a little better when it was a little smaller and not anything was possible in these movies.
Okay.
I like it when it's Spider-Man against one bad guy or something, where
Right.
people die and don't come back because there's a different version of them that can come back. Like where there's just too much. I don't know. I think we're going down a little bit of a slippery slope with these superhero movies where
Yeah.
nothing is going to matter anymore. But
Right.
that's I guess that's kind of a separate conversation. The point being that multiverse is very hot right now. Also, the
Uh-huh.
Russo brothers producers on this movie, which is insane. I decided to wait until after this conversation to actually like try to read up on how that like collaboration worked out. But
Mhm. Mhm.
I guess they said, well, we're making a multiverse movie. We better get the Marvel guys involved somehow.
Yeah, that's funny.
So,
Well, and
yeah.
like we said earlier, like I'm not really into the superhero things. I mean, like I
Yeah.
respect them cuz they're such like spectacular types of films. But I think part of the reason why I don't like them is because I might get canceled for this too, but like I'm just like, wait, there's just this like whole other, and I think like you said, sometimes I feel like it's a cop out for them to be able to do whatever they want, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm watching Seinfeld for the first time ever, right? I'm going through and watching all of it.
I did
And
not think that you were about to bring up Seinfeld, by the
well,
way,
and
but
here's
good.
here's
I'm
here's why I'm bringing up Seinfeld is so it's my boyfriend's favorite show. I told him, look, I'd watch it for you because he quotes it all the time, blah blah blah, right?
Mhm.
And I get annoyed because I love a through story, right? Like
Mhm.
Friends is my favorite like sitcom TV show, right? And
Mhm.
Ross and Rachel are the through story, right? Like every
Sure.
season is somehow about are they going to end up together?
Yeah.
And there's also just like other references throughout all the seasons, right? And I get annoyed cuz I'm like, "Wait, the girlfriend that Jerry had in the last episode, she's just not in this one." And he's like, "Yeah, it's a different episode." It's like it's the
Yeah.
next episode. And I know these aren't multiple
That's old news.
yeah, I know these aren't multiple universes, but I'm just like, but wait, like, because in my mind, when I'm watching a sitcom, I'm not watching it, I'm watching their lives, right? Like, I'm not watching Jerry and then like 2 months later, Jerry, even though that could be him, right?
Mhm.
But I'm like, wait, so the thing that just happened in the last episode, or even like It's Always Sunny does that, right? Like there's that one
Sure.
episode where they're like addicted to crack, and then the next episode they're not. I'm like, wait, so they're just like not addicted to crack anymore? And he's like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's not about that. And I'm like, but it was about that. Like, I don't understand, you know? And he
Yeah,
makes
I think Daniels are like raised on this shit, by the way.
right,
Like I think that's it. I think their brains are
right.
kind of like because they're much younger than me, I believe. And like I
Hmm.
think that they were raised on this kind of stuff on like the weirdness of cartoons of
Yeah.
everything that's happened in the last like 20, 30 years.
Hmm.
And so I mean this is where we're headed with weirder and weirder and weirder stuff.
I think Daniels did it great, but that kind of stuff where it's like, but it's like I said, it kind of seems like a cop out kind of thing where like you said in these superhero movies it's like, oh well they can just do this because this is a different universe, and it's like
Uh-huh.
that's the answer. And
Yeah.
I just think that's like too easy of an answer. But I so that's why I kind of liked that in Everything Everywhere All at Once there was like still this like through story, if you will,
Yeah.
of the Alpha Joy, right?
Mhm.
Of her like that was like what tied it all together, right?
Sure.
So I think as long as you have something tying it all together, I think
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's just so much going on and there's just so many superhero movies that like I find it, I mean, as someone who does not watch them, so who am I to say, but it's hard to keep up, right? Like
Yeah.
even just like it being part of our culture, right? Like the film Twitter culture and everything. It's like, wait, what? Like, I'm so confused.
Yeah.
But that's why I really liked the Spider-Man one because it was so like aware of itself, right? And I
Mm.
think that is something that is important too when there's multiple universes. Like I appreciated that what was her character's name? Evelyn? Was it Evelyn?
Evelyn,
Evelyn.
yeah, Michelle Yeoh,
Um
yeah.
I like that she was still confused in multiple universes at first. Like she was still herself, knowing that she was confused that she was existing in these multiple universes. So I like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the multiple universe thing, it's like a very delicate thing in how you approach it and how you
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah. Well, the thing that ties it together in the Marvel universes is money.
Yeah.
That's basic.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
Right,
But
right.
but yeah, no, I do like though, like just kind of to go along with what you were just talking about there, like this movie, it's got a very positive nugget in the middle of like everything is meaningless,
Yeah.
which everything is meaningless. I do
Right.
kind of believe that, but
I think
at the same
everyone believes
time,
that after the past couple years. It's like
yeah,
nothing
exactly.
matters. Yeah.
Exactly, nothing matters, but like, yeah, like family and love
Right.
and all that, is like that's the through story. That's the
Yeah.
thing to
That
latch
is what
on to.
matters, right? And I think
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
all of us experiencing the craziness of the world for the past 2.5 years, 3 years, not that the world hasn't always been crazy because it has, but
Oh
just
yeah,
all of us going through that shared experience, I think we've all realized, like you said, like nothing matters but those few things that do matter, right? And I think
yeah,
that's again why this is such a good story and the reason why those multiple universes
yeah,
works, right? It works and it all comes together. Yeah.
yeah. So I think we've given Marvel enough attention. Let's
Yeah,
let's move on.
please,
What do you have for your
please.
next piece?
I think I'm running out of pieces here. I think it kind of also just reminded me of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. If
Hmm.
you've seen that,
Oh yeah.
again, yeah, just like multiple universes and again the same people, but living these different avenues, but still knowing in the end, right? It's
Hmm.
been a while since I've seen it, but that was one of the ones I thought of when I was just trying to think of what are some films that aren't superhero movies that have these multiple universes or multiple storylines, right?
Sure, sure.
So
Well, also
yeah,
the visual filmmaking of
yes,
that of Michel Gondry's direction. By the way, more Charlie Kaufman, always
yeah,
appreciated. But
yeah.
I didn't put it on my list. But now that you're bringing up Eternal Sunshine, a Michel Gondry movie, I'd also bring up The Science of Sleep, the movie that he made after that, which
I
I only
think I've
saw
heard of
once.
that.
But again, very weird, very over the top visually, and there's big giant hands, so you get your hot dog hands. But
I
you
wonder
know
if that. I wonder if that's a
I
connection.
think so. I think it definitely would be. But yeah, Michel Gondry, I hope has something in the works soon because yeah, I love a lot of what he's done. I'm actually just going to do one more piece then, and I'm going to combine two things because I think they kind of both they're from very different areas of film, but at the
Hmm.
same time, I think that I'm going to bring them up for the same reasons. One of them would be Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Um, because let's just go weird and then go weirder and then go even weirder from there. So
Yeah, I
that's
haven't
number
seen I
one.
haven't seen that, but I like the tie to the Matrix there as well. But
Yeah.
also, I've seen clips from it, so I kind of know what you're talking about, but not I haven't
Mhm.
seen the full thing. So
Have you seen the original, the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
I think I've seen clips from that too, but not the
Oh,
whole
okay, so you haven't
thing.
seen those.
Yeah,
Those are great, great movies.
I think I would like those. Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. They're very fun. The
yeah.
first one is straightforward, like crowd pleaser fun. The second one sent like 12-year-old me like out of the theater practically in tears because how can they
Ugh.
make such a bad sequel? But then as
Sequels are
40-year-old
tough.
me
Yeah.
rewatched it, I was like, this movie is amazing. I like it even better than the first one.
Oh,
So
that's funny.
yeah, so but
That's
they're
funny.
just very ridiculous. The other one I would add in there for basically the same reason would be Sorry to Bother You. Boots Riley's bizarre, wacky office sci-fi movie from
That
from
was
I
just
think
a couple years
2018.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's funny actually is I feel like that's something I've heard a lot about, but not really. Like by heard about, I mean like I've just heard the title so many times.
Uh,
And I almost watched it the other day and I didn't. And now
mhm.
I will definitely seek it out because I didn't know what it was really about.
Yeah. It's a wild movie, but yeah, I mean, the one thing like aside from just wackiness and weirdness, which was the reason I combined it with Bill and Ted. The other reason to bring it up would be the office setting,
Mm.
because that's another thing. A lot of this movie takes place in office type settings, and there's a lot of that going on. And
Yeah, and
so,
how about the genius of A24, Daniels, whoever it was, releasing this film right at tax season?
oh yeah,
I thought
absolutely,
that was perfect. I was like, oh
that
my
is
God. This
great.
whole time in the theater, I'm thinking, I still haven't done my taxes. I really need to do my taxes.
Yeah, that's
So I
actually
thought,
something coming up in this household right
yeah,
now.
I thought that was perfect. Yeah, I need to do mine as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, that perfect. I'm gonna read down the list of everything we just talked about, and
Okay.
then we'll get into some closing thoughts. But
Okay.
we, of course, talked about Daniel's previous film, Swiss Army Man. Then we talked about The Farewell, Scott Pilgrim vs. The World, Spirited Away, The Matrix, About Time, Synecdoche, New York, and a bunch of other Charlie Kaufman in there. Freaky Friday and Halloween, the Marvel multiverse, whatever we're gonna call that. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and I also added The Science of Sleep in there, the Bill and Ted movies, and Sorry to Bother You. As far as like closing thoughts are concerned, I would also say not really a puzzle piece because it's too new, it's just from a month ago, but I think Turning Red would go really well here too, more of like a companion piece. But
Yes. Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yeah, that it's funny actually. I saw someone tweet about that. That would be a good double feature. And yeah, oh, I love that. I thought that was so cute and so different
yeah.
than a lot of
And the mother
Pixar.
daughter story, I was almost going to
Yes.
bring up Lady Bird here. I mean, which was a puzzle piece
Yes.
on our Turning Red episode. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just the whole mother daughter friction and learning to love the things about each other, and
Right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, at its heart, I mean, we're really getting two stories: the love story between the husband and wife, and then the story of reconciliation between the mother and daughter, all in the midst of all the multiverse stuff. And so, I mean, there's so much going on here.
Yeah. I think that's a great puzzle piece. And I'm also kind of like, how did I not think of that? Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, are there any other things that we didn't quite get to that you wanted to bring up?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot. I loved this film. It was like I said, one of those that I'd been waiting for so long, and it didn't disappoint. So if you haven't seen it, I think definitely go out and see it. I can't wait to see it again. I think
Hmm.
it's one of those that definitely deserves a rewatch, especially because I think the first time is just so like stimulating, and you're just trying to keep. And that's the other thing is I think it it goes so many different places, but it never loses you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It never loses you, and I think all good films do that. So yeah, I loved it, and I'm so glad we were able to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
this was awesome. It was so fun. I can't wait to see it again. And I'm gonna seek out all these ones that you talked about that I haven't seen. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. The only other thing I wanted to bring up just briefly, I really love that like one of the central story elements here is that Evelyn is like the one because she didn't excel at anything. So she's like a perfect vessel for all of the Evelyns across the multiverse that did excel at things. I
yeah.
just think that's great. As an underachiever myself, I think that's wonderful. So
Yeah, I love that too. And that was something that a lot of people laughed at in the theater and that I laughed at, but I was also like, but hey, this is also relatable, right? Like
yeah,
you're just
absolutely.
like good like mediocre, pretty good at most like things, like
Yeah,
and sometimes life feels that way, right? Like
it
you just feel
does.
like I'm just getting by every day and doing the things and doing my taxes and doing my laundry and you know, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I thought that was really relatable too.
So funny, so
Yeah,
great.
it was good.
Well, I think that about does it for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Is there another movie you watched recently you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Well, because I just rewatched About Time, it's not a new one, but definitely seek it out. It's so good. New stuff that I've recently watched. I just saw The Lost City.
Hmm.
It was cute, but it was kind of
Yeah,
disappointing. I love Sandra Bullock. I love Channing Tatum. Brad Pitt was great. But it was kind of just like I don't know. It wasn't as cute as I thought it was gonna be. Did you see
yeah.
it?
Yeah, I had fun with it. We
Yeah,
actually
it was
recorded an
fun. Yeah.
episode. It hasn't come out yet, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's not great, but I did have fun with it. I'll recommend to you if you haven't seen it, those directors' previous film, Band of Robbers.
Okay.
It's really, really good. I just watched it for the first time right before The Lost City came out, and
Okay.
Yeah, so, but Lost City,
Band of
yeah,
Brothers.
I think
Okay.
that's fun, but
It was fun. Yeah, it was one of
yeah,
those, like, I went to the theater by myself to see it just because I was like, whatever, like, it's one that, oh my gosh, I've seen previews for how long now and a billion times over that I was like, yeah,
yeah,
I want to see this. Like, I like Sandra Bullock, I could use a good like, cheesy,
yeah,
like, predictable rom-com. And
yeah,
it still kind of was just like, like, it was
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
But I also recently saw The Outfit. I don't know if you've seen that.
That I haven't
Um,
seen yet. I want to
it
see that.
was good. I really like that. That's another one
Okay.
that there's like a very definitive nod to Hitchcock's Rope, which is my
Hmm.
favorite.
Okay.
So I love that, and it's kind of one of those that like takes place all in the same setting, which I love those types of films. I also
Hmm.
think like if you can pull that off, you have a good story. That's something that's not easy to do, is pull off a whole movie in one spot in one
Oh yeah,
setting.
yeah.
So I loved that. And Mark Rylance, I mean, he's great.
He's great.
So yeah, he was
Yeah.
great. So definitely seek that
Awesome.
out if you haven't seen it.
Great, great. Well,
Yeah.
Erica, thank you so much for doing this. Why don't you tell people again where they can find you and everything you're up to?
Thank you for having me. I'm glad that we can prove to the world that we're friends, even though the infamous Saving Private Ryan Rocky
Yeah.
debate.
Battle for the ages for sure.
I know. No, thank you seriously so much for having me. This was so fun. I'd love to come back soon. But yeah, like I said, Erock Reviews on Twitter is where you can find me and whatever I'm up to. I have a link tree on there, like I said, that links to podcasts I've been on and all of my writing I've done for the different websites I've done. So hopefully I'm going to be writing it more soon, but work and life and things just seem to be getting in the way. But I'll
Hmm.
jump back on the horse soon. So
I had make a link tree on my to-do list,
it's
and I
so
made the
easy.
link tree. I made it, but it's still on my to-do list because I don't know when I'm done making my link tree. Like it's
So
just
I just update mine. It's so easy.
another
You
thing to
should.
update.
I
That's all
know,
life
but you
is
know what?
updating things.
It's true. True. That's so true. We could make a multi-universe about that.
Oh yeah.
But no, you should, because it's just one of those things. Like I feel like you're established in the podcast world and like the film world, and I still find myself sometimes that friends that I've known for a long time, they know how into film I am, and they'll be like, "Wait, you do reviews? You do podcasts?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like,
Mhm.
"Send me your stuff," and I just find it so easy to just like send them this one link that has everything to it. So you
Yeah.
should update it and get it out there.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it
Yeah,
right
it's
after I post this. That's gonna be my next job for sure.
yeah. Well,
Well,
again,
thank you so much for being here, Erica.
thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
I'm Josh Bell.
And I'm Jason Harris, and we co-host a podcast called Awesome Movie Year.
Each season, we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year.
We deep dive into these specific years, and we pick out why they were such great years for films. We go over the biggest hits, the biggest flops, the best picture, some personal picks, some cult classics.
Years we've covered in past seasons include 1994, 2003, 1977, and 1984, and we've got all of film history to look forward to. So check us out at awesomemovieyear.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about everything everywhere all at once. Thanks to Erica Richards for joining me on that one. And thank you to you for listening to the podcast. If you enjoy what we do here on the show, make sure you're subscribed. And while you're at it, rate and review. We'd love to hear your feedback on the podcast and what we do here. And by the way, the little matchup we talked about, the Saving Private Ryan versus Rocky, that was from the Binge Movies podcast that Erica and I were both guests on. Check out Binge Movies. Jason's been here on Piecing It Together a few times, and I've been over on his show a bunch. So check that podcast out too. Lots of great movie podcasts out there to check out. And yeah, if you're ever interested in joining me for an episode, get in touch. I actually had like 5 people contact me about wanting to be on this particular episode. But of course, the first person who gets in touch with me is usually who ends up doing it. So, get in touch if there's a movie you want to cover, and maybe we will get that to happen. So, Yeah, I'm always looking for new guests, so definitely get in touch with me. And make sure you're following us on social media at Piecing Pod and join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces. And also, don't forget about the Patreon. I told you at the top of the show. Produced by David Rosen. It is patreon.com/by David Rosen. We just hit our first big milestone. I'm going to set up a new milestone on there soon. So, yeah, lots of cool stuff happening on the Patreon, which is very exciting. So let's close this thing out with a piece of music like I always do. And usually on these like very anticipated episodes, the ones on like the big movies that everybody is really excited about, I like to preview some new music because what's a better way to get people excited about the new albums I have coming out than to play them on these kinds of episodes. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to play a track. It's one of my favorite tracks that I've been working on. It's not 100% done yet, but it's pretty close. This will be on my next album whenever that gets finished. But it's called In Circles, and I've been working on this one a long time. I really love this song, so I hope you enjoy it. We'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.